I honestly do not recall an awful lot about the mathematical experiences I had in primary school, which I suppose says more than enough about the experience, but to be fair, I went through school with the goal of getting by with the minimum amount of effort possible. They told me that I would fail if I missed 26 days in a semester, but my takeaway was that I could miss 25 and still pass, which I did. After all, the diploma I got was no different than the one the valedictorian got. I suppose there was a decent amount of fun and hands-on learning during my formative years, but again, nothing noteworthy. My memories of math classes all gave me a feeling of adequacy, a sense that most of my teachers did their job and taught me what was necessary for me to move on to the next level, and frankly, I find that perfectly acceptable. However, I will say that these days I fancy myself a math fanatic, and I don't believe that to have much to do with my early experiences, but rather a specific class that ignited the mathematical fire inside me, college algebra with Professor Drake. I will agree that objectively the number sense approach works better than rote memorization, though most methods of acquiring knowledge are likely to beat out rote memorization by a fair margin. I can't find any evidence online to support the accuracy of the following attribution, and my Google foo is quite strong. But I once heard a quote ostensibly from Alexander Pope, which implied the following: "A great teacher does not teach a pupil anything at all. They merely supply them with the tools necessary to discover the knowledge on their own," or something like that. Whether or not it is an accurate quote does not change the fact that it puts into words what many great teachers exemplify on a daily basis. Students do not easily discover information by doing a worksheet on their own, nor by someone simply telling them about it. Sure, they may learn it, and they may even understand it, but they didn't discover it, and discovery is the means by which true knowledge is gathered. For those of you who have not or do not currently work with children in an institutional capacity, you may not know what the best part of being a teacher is. The best part of being a teacher isn't nights, weekends, and summers off, nor is it stealing stuff from home to bring to work. It's the look on a student's face when they finally get it. It is the nearly audible click that happens when they have been struggling for hours, days, or even weeks to wrap their head around a concept, and in a split second, they go from not getting it to fully grasping it. You can see in their eyes the synapses firing and their brain rewiring itself to connect neurons together, and at the end, a massive switch is magnificently and resolutely moved from the off to the on position. It is the greatest validation for the path we have chosen, and if you work hard at it, you can witness it happen and count yourself among the lucky ones. Anyway, back to Professor Drake. In my third year of college, I was treated to a course that changed my life forever. And it wasn't due to the style in which we were taught. In fact, most of the class was boring worksheets and really generic story problems. Speed of a boat traveling down a moving river type stuff. And to my knowledge, few of my peers were as taken as I was with the subject. But what really sold me was Professor Drake's passion for mathematics. I am not suggesting at all that worksheets and boring story problems are better than number sense, or any teaching method for that matter. But what I am saying is that none of them will work at all without a genuine passion for the subject. Professor Drake loved math, and it showed. He was a timid old man in a tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows, and he wasn't very charismatic. But when he talked about functions and proofs, he spoke with a fascination in his voice that forced you to wonder what he knew that you didn't. In the same way that angrily yelling at someone can cause them to want to yell at you for no other reason than you started it, the enthusiasm this man possessed when demonstrating how to solve a problem radiated throughout the room and elicited, in me at least, a reaction and an equal desire to understand math the way he did. I didn't learn how to do math in that class. I learned how to communicate with the universe in its native language. The moment I realized I genuinely enjoyed math was when he asked us two simple questions. First, he asked us, "What do you get when you multiply a negative number by a second negative number?" To which we all dully replied, "A positive number?" But then he continued with a profound follow-up. "Why?" We were dumbfounded. We all knew that the product of two negatives was a positive. We knew it as concrete fact, but none of us knew why. And furthermore, none of us had ever thought to question it, until now. He then proceeded to write down and explain the proof that the product of two negative numbers will always be positive. There were no colorful charts or fancy videos to help us focus on something seemingly boring, but just a man and a dry erase board. He spent half an hour explaining step by step that not only would the product of any two negative numbers be positive, but that it couldn't be any other way. This should have left the entire class terminally disinterested, but he wrote down each individual step with a demeanor that suggested that we were on a journey that could only end in a life-altering discovery. And so we followed this path with enthusiasm, and at the end of it, we understood it. Look at the proof I provided in the discussion post. He made that a desirable thing to understand. We left that class with the knowledge that mathematical facts were true because we could demonstrate that they were. And for me at least, I had a newfound desire to discover more of these mathematical truths of the universe, all because Professor Drake wanted to as well. In this week's readings, we are told that children learn at their own pace, and that we as educators need to be aware of and respect that, for fear that students will be pushed too fast before they have developed the cognitive capacity to understand the logical reasoning that underlies the operations. But at no point are we told that we have the power to influence that pace by simply instilling in them a greater desire to learn. Simply understanding the material enough to impart it unto those who don't understand it is often not enough, and we all know of, or have been, that student who, despite having the ability to learn, simply chooses not to. Why? They have no interest. They are here because they have no choice in the matter, but more importantly, they don't want to be here. That is a dangerous attitude to have in a place of instruction, especially if it is an attitude possessed by those doing the instructing. No teacher has ever done a greater disservice than the one who believes that math is something you must learn, even though it's boring. I work in a school right now, and I have multiple peers who, when asked a question about math, respond dismissively with, "Oh, I was never any good at that," or "I always hated math." That attitude is contagious. How can we expect teachers to integrate math into each of their lessons if they do so in a way that silently screams to the students, "I hate this just as much as you do, and I, as an authority figure, am telling you that this is how you should feel"? Like Spider-Man before us, we have been given a gift, and we can choose to use that gift negatively, but negative attitudes are not the only things that are contagious in school. If you teach a class, any class, with an attitude that screams, "I genuinely enjoy the fact that I understand what I am teaching you right now," you can't always guarantee that every one of your students will take that ball and run with it. But, as the great one once said, you miss every shot you don't take.